The Eternal Dominion was the crown jewel of the Galactic Empire's fleet. 3 kilometers of reinforced Vantium plating, 47 weapon decks, a crew of 12,000 from 9 different species. It had crushed rebellions, ended wars, and reduced entire civilizations to compliance with a single broadside. Its commander, High Admiral Vorix of the Kraluen, had never once felt fear aboard his ship. Until today, he stood at the viewport, staring at what floated in the void ahead of him, and he felt something cold and unfamiliar crawl up his spine. It was human. 3 weeks earlier, the Empire had received a transmission from the newly contacted human species. A request for diplomatic meeting. Standard procedure. The Empire extended the same invitation it always did. Come to us. Bring no weapons. Submit to inspection. The humans had agreed. But the ship they sent was wrong. It was not large. That was the first thing Vorix noticed. By Empire standards, it was barely a courier vessel, perhaps 200 meters in length, narrow, angular, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No visible weapon ports. No traditional engine burn. It simply moved, silently, at speeds that made the Empire's sensor operators rub their eyes and recalibrate their instruments 3 times. It docked without asking for docking clearance. It simply matched velocity perfectly, instantaneously, and attached to the Eternal Dominion's port bay with mechanical precision that no organic crew could have managed unaided. 2 humans stepped out. Matthew Sullivan was not what Vorix had expected. He was tall, for a human. Calm. He wore no uniform of rank, just a dark jacket with a small flag on the shoulder. He carried nothing visible. He smiled the way people smiled when they already knew how a conversation would end. Beside him, Rebecca Adams was shorter, with sharp eyes that moved constantly, not with nervousness, but with the practiced observation of someone cataloging every detail of a room the moment she entered it. She held a small rectangular device in her hand. She had not put it down since boarding. Vorix had demanded, through his translator, to know what that device was. Rebecca had looked at him calmly and said, "A tablet, a weapon, a computer." Vorix had let it pass. He had more important matters to address. The diplomatic meeting was held in the Eternal Dominion's Grand Chamber, a room designed specifically to intimidate. Towering ceilings of black stone. The flags of 300 conquered civilizations hanging in silent rows. A table long enough to seat 40, with Vorix and his Admiralty Council arrayed on one side, and the 2 humans seated quietly on the other. Vorix opened with the standard terms. Recognition of Imperial sovereignty. Taxation schedule. Resource extraction quotas. Military service obligations. The humans would be integrated, as all species were integrated, on the Empire's terms, within the Empire's structure, under the Empire's law. Matthew Sullivan listened to all of it without expression. When Vorix finished, Matthew folded his hands on the table and said, "We respectfully decline." The chamber went very still. "You decline," Vorix repeated. "Yes. You understand what that means." Matthew nodded once. "I do." Vorix leaned forward. "Your species numbers perhaps 9 billion, on a single world. The Empire commands 400 star systems, 8 trillion citizens, and a fleet that has never been defeated. You decline. We do." There was a long pause. "Then we will take what we want by force," Vorix said. "As we always have." Matthew Sullivan looked at him for a moment. Then he looked at Rebecca. Rebecca placed her tablet on the table and slid it across to Vorix. On the screen was a live feed. Vorix recognized the star system immediately. It was Keth 7, one of the Empire's core military production worlds. Shipyards in orbit, garrison fleets, planetary defense grids that could intercept anything short of a full fleet assault. As he watched, something entered the system. Not a fleet, not even a ship, exactly. It was a single object, long and dark, moving without thrust signature, without emissions of any kind. The garrison fleet scrambled immediately. He could see the formation changes, the weapon locks, the targeting solutions computing in real time. They fired. Every weapon on every ship in that garrison simultaneously. The object did not evade. It did not raise a shield. It simply continued moving, and every shot, energy beams, kinetic rounds, disruption torpedoes, passed through it. Not deflected, not absorbed. Through. As though it were not entirely real. The object reached the central shipyard, and then it stopped. For 11 seconds, nothing happened. Then the shipyard folded. That was the only word Vorex could find for it. The station did not explode. It did not break apart. It simply folded, its geometry collapsing inward on itself like a sheet of paper crushed by an invisible hand, compressed into a shape that should not have been physically possible, and then it was gone. No debris, no shockwave, no energy signature. Gone. The object turned and left the system at the same silent, impossible speed. Vorex stared at the screen. He had no words. Matthew spoke quietly. We've been watching the Empire for about 40 years. You've contacted 17 species in that time. 12 are now occupied. 3 resisted and were destroyed. 2 submitted without resistance. He paused. We spent those 40 years preparing. Rebecca added, just as quietly. That demonstration cost us very little. The device you just watched is automated. We have 400 of them currently deployed across your territory. Every major shipyard, every fleet anchorage, every command installation, coordinates already locked. Vorex's senior admiral, a heavily decorated Kralluan named Dorash, leaned forward with barely controlled fury. You're bluffing. That footage could be fabricated. No technology can. Phase state displacement, Rebecca said simply. Matter temporarily shifted out of synchronization with local spacetime. It passes through conventional matter because, for the duration of transit, it exists approximately 0.3 of a second out of phase with your physical reality. On arrival, resynchronization causes a localized space-time compression event. She glanced at him. We published the theory 60 years ago. The engineering took a while. Dorash stared at her. You published it, he said. In our physics journals, yes. Peer-reviewed. Quite a lot of debate about whether it was practical. She picked up her tablet again. It is. The silence in the grand chamber lasted for a long time. Vorex found his voice eventually. It was smaller than he intended. What do you want? Matthew Sullivan reached into his jacket and placed a single document on the table. It was paper. Actual paper, which no spacefaring civilization used anymore. Vorex would later learn that the humans did it deliberately. They liked the symbolism. A treaty, Matthew said. Not of submission. Of mutual non-interference. You keep your territory. We keep ours. Trade is welcome, on equal terms. Any species currently under Imperial occupation that wishes to petition for protected status under human diplomatic guarantees is free to do so through proper channels. He tapped the document. The terms are reasonable. We're not interested in conquest. Then what are you interested in? Vorex asked. Matthew considered the question for a moment, as though it were genuinely worth thinking about. Being left alone, he said finally. That's really all we've ever wanted. To build things, to go places, to figure out how the universe works. We're not interested in your empire. A brief, quiet pause. We are, however, very good at ending them. The treaty was signed that same day. Vorex's hand was steady when he pressed his mark to the document. He had been trained from youth to show nothing, to project strength through absolute stillness. But when the two humans walked back through the docking bay and their small, silent ship detached from the Eternal Dominion and accelerated away at speeds that bent the sensor readings, Dorash came to stand beside him at the viewport. What are they? Dorash asked quietly. Vorex watched the human vessel until it was gone, swallowed by the dark. He thought about the folded shipyard, about phase state displacement published in journals 60 years ago, about Rebecca Adams explaining the end of a military installation the way a teacher explains arithmetic to a slow student, about Matthew Sullivan smiling like he already knew. I don't know, Vorex said finally. He had conquered 80 worlds. He had made species beg. He had stood at the edge of dying stars and felt nothing but power. He had never, in all of it, felt small. He felt small now. Whatever they are, he said quietly, I am grateful they only wanted to be left alone. Behind him, hanging in long silent rows, the flags of 300 conquered civilizations said nothing at all.